Big Fish, I thought, was the perfect title for a book. I had the title in my office years before I even started writing the book. And where it came from was an expression my father always said over and over again. I didn't want to be a big fish in a little pond. My father left Coleman, Alabama, and then became an international businessman.
Kept in a small bowl, the goldfish will remain small. With more space, the fish will grow double, triple, or quadruple its size.
I was inspired by a couple of things. One, having the father I had, and two, having a son I just had. I'd always also been interested in myths, and I wanted to write a story of a man's life as though he were a mythic character.
Friend, what happened to your shoes?
They kind of got ahead of me.
The company who bought it said, this is a wonderful book, but it will never become a movie.
I'd read the manuscript for Big Fish about 6 months before it was published, and I had like overnight to read it and decide if I wanted to be involved with it, and thought it was fantastic.
I don't think Big Fish could have become a movie without John August and the vision that he brought to it. He's the person who really turned it into something special.
It was interesting as we started to cast the movie, and when Billy Crudup came on board, and Daniel Wallace was like, oh, so Billy Crudup is playing me. And I said, no, Billy Crudup is playing me.
When John first sent me his screenplay, he said he felt like he had taken my children and dressed them in different clothes. And it's a little bit how you feel. You don't recognize them at first, but you like the clothes.
Daniel Wallace read every draft of the script I wrote. Being able to deal directly with him as the other writer on the project and being able to share every draft with him, it's been exciting to see the give and take between what you can do in a book and what you can do in a movie.
There's one character in Big Fish. It's a poet named Norther Winslow, and in the book he has 15 words devoted to him. And in the movie, and it's a very big part of the plot. So he took it and completely, ran with it.
And what are you doing now?
I'm robbing this place.
Now. Everybody lie down!
There are a lot of similarities between the father in Big Fish and my real father. He was a charismatic man who used his charisma to really keep people at a distance.
So here's a couple of different, levels of that. Good.
When I found out that Tim Burton was directing the film, it sounded like the perfect match of material to director. There's a possibility that it could become a sentimental movie. And when I found out that Tim Burton was going to be involved, I realized that he would be able to have that element in the film, but stress other components that I would, wanted to see in there as well. There are folk tales in Big Fish, tall tales. The father is a compulsive storyteller, and Southern literature is about storytelling.
These are American fables that are sort of being told, and the American dream is that sort of classic American fable, too. Instead of a golden fleece, you're after a white picket fence.
When Norther made his first $1 million, he sent me a check for $10,000. I protested, but he said it was my fee as his career advisor. It was enough to buy my wife a proper house with a white picket fence.
Couldn't have been happier that they're shooting the film in Alabama. The book takes place in Alabama. I'm from Alabama. It's made me kind of a star, in my own home state. It's something that I really never counted on when I sat down to write books. I can't help but be a Southern writer. I've always lived in the South, and Big Fish relies on the history and that genre quite a bit.
In the books he's written since then, they all overlap. It's sort of like Faulkner. They all take place in similar terrain, and some of the characters repeat.
I have this generic small town that resides in my head, and it's based on my experience visiting my grandparents in a little town in northern Alabama called Coleman. It's where all these stories come from. I don't know why, because I didn't spend years there. We just went up time and again, when I was growing up, but it made a huge impression on me. All my small towns are based on this one town. Some of the characters that are in the book are from the town, but mostly I see this blueprint. When I imagine a character going into a business, It's going into a specific business in Coleman, even though the name has changed and the people have changed. In a way, it's like a movie set in my head.
When you actually visit the real places, they're strangely perfect.
The time I was most astounded was when Bruce Cohen, one of the producers, took me through the forest that they had built. You wander through the darkness of these trails, and all of a sudden it opens up onto this town, Spectre, which they built entirely for the movie. Seeing that production, which can be traced back to just a few minutes that I spent writing, was really incredible.
Action. So, as we can see, supply and demand.
They thought maybe I could play a professor, so I've been working on the facial expression.
Take a look at the next graph, and I think the import of this will be even stronger. It will even...
I haven't had any professional training whatsoever. For the first time, I'm going to be teaching at the University of North Carolina fiction, which is really the only thing I know.
The way that Holly talked about coming to the story and writing is a lot like how I write, too. I just sit down and start typing and see what happens. And sometimes nothing happens, and sometimes the story starts to develop. It's a lot easier to scale something back than it is to pump something up. So, I would always say, go over the top, and then, you can reel it in later.
Storytelling, it's a form of magic. Art in general, I think, brings us in touch with that sense of wonder.
Now, which one's it gonna be? Monkey in a barn or dog in a road?
The one about the rich.
I think the power in this story is that it takes the particular and makes it universal. So many people have come up to me after reading the book and said, that's my dad.
Sometimes the only way to catch an uncatchable woman is to offer her a wedding ring.
One of those extras that come from writing stories, when you send it out into the world, you don't know a lot of times how it's going to affect people. And that it has, and in general, I think, so positively affected so many people. It's really the icing on the cake.